guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Neighbor cut down 10-century-old trees and excavated my house's foundation without permission. I never would have imagined that a project my neighbors were working on could turn into such a mess. I live in an older and more mature neighborhood. Many of the houses and trees are over 100 years old and we all like it that way. That is, until my neighbor decided that he would do something so drastic that it would end up nearly ruining my house. It all started one week when Dave, neighbor, began the process of leveling and excavating some ground near the back side of our houses. I know that he mentioned a month or two ago that he was having a lot of issues with his basement leaking and sometimes even flooding when it rained for several days. I noticed that he was also having several trees from his yard removed. I found this to be a bad idea for his property value, but it was his house. Our backyards have a large footprint, but there is only a small part of it that is level with the house. The rest of the yard just drops off a pretty steep area where I have several very old trees and other ivy and foliage to cover the hill. Nearer to my house I have a 130-year-old black walnut tree and a 110-year-old maple. I left one day to have my hair done and run a few other errands. That's when I received a phone call from my other neighbor saying that the excavation company had a backhoe, practically in my house. I rushed home to find my yard in a state of devastation. They had ripped my entire yard all the way to my deck all the way out. It was absolutely unbelievable. I literally cried the moment that I saw it. I called my husband, Jeremy, and sobbed, telling him what had happened, and he left work to see the damages immediately. I'm not exaggerating either, it was a hazard. It dropped about 12 feet from my back door down into this crazy ditch that they had created. Not only had they simply destroyed my entire yard, but they had taken out all of my trees. Both of my 100-year-old plus trees and the 8 others that were easily over 90. The black walnut was close to my house and the damage from them just yanking the tree out by the roots caused visible foundation issues immediately. I was already seeing cracks in my sidewalk and it wouldn't take an engineer to see the future problems I was about to have. At this point, my house was no longer safe. I was shouting for them to stop the excavation, which they did. I was ready to throw myself down in front of their machinery to put a halt to the project if I had to. I will never understand why the contractor or my neighbor would do what they did. While I knew that he was doing all of this to fix some issue he was having with his house, it felt as if it was a personal attack on me and my home. After the initial shock wore off, I stormed across the property to the men that were talking with my neighbor. Tears in my eyes, my face red with fury, I whirled my purse back to hit Dave, but my husband suddenly grabbed me. Probably for the better when I look back on it, but boy would it have felt good to just deck that bastard. Jeremy began talking with them, rather loudly. He was certainly upset as well. The lead contractor, I'm assuming, started saying that this was the only way he could fix Dave's basement issue and that as they were excavating his side of the property, ours started falling away, so he went ahead and figured he might as well level our side as well. What a crock of bullshit if I've ever heard it. Then Dave had the audacity to tell my husband that I asked him to have these trees removed, while they were at it. My jaw dropped and I was quick to interject, telling them that this is false and I would never have asked them to destroy my yard or cut down my beautiful century-old trees. My husband had me step back again because he knows I will become hostile if they piss me off again. I promise, I'm normally a very kind person, but this was the craziest act of disrespect and assault on my personal property that I've ever dealt with. Our other neighbor across the street, Tony, came over and was checking with me while Jeremy and the others hashed out the situation. Tony used to own a construction company and didn't hesitate to give me some helpful advice and assistance. Tony walked over to the group of men and began asking a few questions of his own. It became obvious that something was off. The head contractor was hesitant to show the permits that were required to do construction work. Tony brought up that they were supposed to be posted and available for anyone to see. The contractor said that he had them but had forgotten them at the office, therefore, he hadn't posted them up. The group of workers and the contractor ended up leaving after the pressure from Tony and Jeremy's questions seemed to become too much for them to explain. Prior to them leaving, My husband mentioned that he was going to look into the legalities of the situation and get back with them on how much money and damages they just caused. Their faces became pale as the men walked away. After a few days of investigating the entire situation, calling the city and finding out what kind of permits and other necessities there should have been to prevent damage to our property, we realized that Dave and his team of contractors were completely out of line on their work. He only had one permit for them to do work on the inside of the house in the basement and a permit for using the backhoe. No permit for the work they were doing outside or the digging that was going to be done. They also didn't have the city or any professionals come out to flag where the plumbing, gas, water, or electrical lines were. It's a miracle they didn't do more damage than they did. It took me a matter of minutes to call and hire a lawyer after finding out this information. I had several friends that were once lawyers, so I wasn't short on recommendations. I explained what was going on and the attorney felt like we had a pretty sure fire case against them. Within the first week of this mess, we also started to notice that the house was having some cracks in the ceiling and tile in the kitchen nearest to the giant drop-off at the back of the home. We had to bring in an engineer and our own contractor to try and gather info on how much it would cost to fix the foundation problems that have been caused. We ended up getting quoted around $75,000 in potential damages, with a great likelihood that it will be more than that. We talked with our homeowner's insurance and they also recommended taking the company and neighbor to court for damages. The process was relatively quick for it being a legal issue. Court normally takes a long time. I used to be a clerk for 20 years before I retired. Our lawyer and the judge made short work of them when we laid out all of the details and proved how they were missing dozens of important steps and blatantly destroyed our property without permission or appropriate permits. Plus it wasn't the neighbor's dang yard and that was his jurisdiction. The judge was honestly a little shocked at the situation and stated that no matter how they try to put it, it is obvious that they were wrong to come and destroy my yard and cause so much damage to my house and destroy my trees. Thankfully, I had an arborist come before the court hearing because I didn't realize how much they were actually worth. The black walnut was worth almost $60,000 and the maple was about $50,000, plus all the other trees added up to about $130,000 as well, not to mention the damages to the home. All in all, Dumb Dave and his even dumber contractor ended up shelling out over $350,000 to us. We required a lot of it to fix the home. Ended up being almost $150,000 to repair the foundation issues and rebuild the yard. I even had a newer, mature tree planted, which cost a pretty penny but was worth it. My home is still standing and Dave ended up moving. The next story is entitled Couple Buy Our House. So we recently went to auction and sold our house. The couple who purchased it turned out to be rude, entitled twerps. We were very thorough in preparing our sale documents, going above and beyond to detail all the renovation works we'd completed. Due to public holidays in our open house period, we also had more than the usual inspection times and even opened the house privately for some interested parties. There was ample opportunity for checking everything out. Auction went fine, but the first sign of trouble came after. The couple take nearly 2 hours to sign the contract. It is explained to them that this is an unconditional sale. As in, they can't pull out of the sale for any reason without losing their deposit. They also can't request a building or pest inspection now and use the findings as a reason to back out of the sale and receive their deposit back. Those things are meant to be organized before purchase or you just take your chances. That's how it works here when it's an auction. A private sale has different rules. They then asked to purchase some furniture which we said we'd think about. In the next days, the real estate agent starts plaguing us with a number of texts and calls asking various questions about the property on behalf of the couple. What are the roof tiles made of? When did we last clean the roof? What is the deck made of? What is the material under the deck? Where is the storage battery for the solar panels? Have we had the aircon serviced? Etc, etc, etc. We answer all, but it starts to become annoying and we advise the agents all of this info in either in the ad or the building report. Or it should have been discussed before the purchase. It starts to become clear that the couple are wealthy investors who have moved from another country and just bought the house off the photos. They then demand a building inspection. Our conveyancer urgently advises against this. If they were to find pretense to pull out of the deal, they would lose their deposit, yes, but then we would have no funds coming through for the settlement of our new house. We do not have any legal obligations to say yes, so I advise no. The agents harass us for a week begging, but I tell them to drop the topic and it's a definite no. The couple then ask to bring forward the settlement date. We are actually okay with this, but the lady we purchased our new house from is not. To make the money work, we need to settle the old and new houses on the same day, so we have to say no, or else spend a lot of money putting ourselves up in a hotel for a few weeks. We can't afford that and so say no. This angers the couple because they then have to pay extra rent where they are currently living. We apologize, but it's out of our hands. The agents harass us again on the couple's behalf, but we stay firm. Another barrage of questions about the house follow, which we answer. They then ask us which furniture we're selling them. We decline to sell anything as these people are just too much trouble. Then the couple ask for their pre-settlement inspection. This is normal to check that nothing included in the sale contract has been moved from the home, like fixtures and fittings such as curtains, etc. It's legally not meant to be done until the 7 days before settling. They request it 15 days out. We try to tell them to come on the Monday or Tuesday before settlement so that the house is empty. They refused. We end up saying yes, as we don't want them there while we have our storage containers on site and have scheduled time to be packing. We make clear the house is not in final sale condition and they are agreeing to settle as is with our goods taken out. They agree in writing. On the inspection day, we happen to have an old couch on the nature strip awaiting hard rubbish collection. It's been completely torn up by our cats and not even any of the neighborhood scavengers have collected it. They are clearly upset we didn't sell the furniture to them and accuse us of dumping rubbish on their property. We remind them it's not theirs yet and show them the council booking slip for collection. We drove around the block at inspection time and settled in the court opposite and watched them bring someone who we highly suspect was a builder on site without our permission. Couldn't prove it though. Finally, we are packing our storage containers the weekend before settlement. We take a 5 minutes break and sit inside with the front door and container door open, keeping an ear out if anyone starts sniffing about our goods. Lo and behold, we hear people walking around in the driveway next to our containers. I am out of my seat like a shot and instantly saw these guys are builders measuring our fence. I demand to know what they think they're doing. They say they were told no one would be there and they were allowed in. I snapped and screamed at them that this was still my property, they didn't have permission to be there and to leave. They refused and said, "Oh, we'll just be a minute doing this." I said no, they were trespassing and to get out. They start walking over to me, being threatening and intimidating, getting in my personal space. I am woman under 5 feet and an easy target in their eyes, I guess. At this point they look up and see my very tall and large husband coming towards them and hot-foot it to their car. I call the agents and my conveyancer in a rage and let them know this is completely unacceptable and I will call the police if they are seen again. The couple deny they sent them. The day of settlement comes. All is good for the money. We hand our keys over and breathe a sigh of relief that this is all over. But it isn't. We get an angry email from the couple's conveyancer claiming we left goods on the property and didn't leave it in fit condition for settlement. And that as his client wasn't allowed on the property, he couldn't check for this properly. We reminded the conveyancer that his client already put in writing that they came to inspect too early and accepted the condition of the house. He attaches pictures of the goods they want picked up. It's a bag of rubbish we forgot in the shed, probably from the day their builders came and we were distracted. In the photo are also things like spare fence pickets and roof tiles which we left as a courtesy. Fine, we say, this is all too hard, we'll come and get it. So we have to get permission to go on the property as it's not ours anymore. My husband gets there and starts packing up everything in the photo. The owners freak out and demand that he leave everything there. My husband refuses until they put in writing what they want left. Begrudgingly they write that they want the fence pickets and all the spare bathroom and roof tiles left. Then my husband takes the paint tins we left. Remember, we just renovated before we sold, so we left some paint for touch-ups. They want him to leave it all there, but refuse to put it in writing, so he takes it all and the snail pellets too. Oh well, the garden has a massive snail problem, but they can pay out of their own pocket to deal with that now. In the end, all they really wanted gone was the bag of rubbish and the decorative steel panels at the back of the house, which we left as a fixture/fitting as per contract. But anyway, they just made a fuss as retaliation about the builder to inconvenience us. The icing on the cake? They demanded my husband change the alarm code for them on his way out. He told them no, it was not his responsibility to do that, and also he had left them detailed written instructions on how to do it themselves. They said they couldn't figure it out. He shrugged and told them get a technician then and walked out. By contrast, at our new home, the previous owner left us a long handwritten letter explaining how the house works, some menus of her favorite takeout and her number if there were any questions. She left us spare light globes, electrical parts, fittings and spare floorboards. We were happy about that as we intend to change out the old carpet and can now match the rest of the flooring. We found that she left behind some handwritten recipes and cookbooks. We texted her thanks for the note and would she like her books? She was so grateful. That's how it should have gone. The people we sold to were so awful to deal with. If they had been nicer, we would have left the couple a handwritten note of our own, explaining to avoid the neighbor on the right as he has no sense of social norms and the only way to get him to leave is to slam the door in his face. Oh, and also he has severe pest problems on his property. It's a giant forest in suburbia and he doesn't maintain it. Oh well. Hope they don't mind rodents, ticks, all manner of spiders, including nests of redbacks, jumping jack ants, eastern brown snakes and foxes. Or grass that is as tall as your shoulders. We also would have explained to avoid the neighbor to the left who we were sure was a drug dealer, but keys at his house at all hours, constantly having roof plumbing done, pressure washes his truck most days to clean the residue. And in his off time he plays with power tools in a manner that can only be described as grinding a block of steel. Looking back, actually it wasn't a great place to live. Hope they enjoy. The last story is entitled Aunt Forced Her Siblings to Sell a Property. So, it's been a while since I've posted something about my entitled relatives, but reading another post here reminded me of one specific event. Remember, English isn't my first language, so sorry about any mistakes. A few months after my grandma passed away, Jane told her siblings that she was selling one of the properties that my grandma had given her. She barely visited grandma, and when she did there was always a fight between them, so it was next to impossible. Grandma had told her that. Some of us knew she couldn't do it since after my grandpa passed, my grandma had legally split all the properties between my mother and her siblings to prevent their half-brother from contesting the will. We later found out that while grandma was at the hospital, Jane stole from the safe the deeds. Jane hit a roadblock when she talked with her lawyer about the contract for selling. She had to wait until the will was read and executed, because of the properties being legally divided amongst the siblings. After a little bit over a year, everything was sorted out and Jane then went back to claiming that property was hers because grandma told her so before she passed. Guess she expected everyone to agree with her, but no one did. After a lot of tantrums and fighting, basically she wore everyone down and were fed up with her antics. Everyone agreed to sell it, but not before having it valued to know the real market price. Turns out she was selling it at a fraction. Well, the day everyone was signing the contract with the realtor for the step before finalizing the sale, Jane pulled a stunt, that since she was the rightful owner unless she got all the money because everyone owed her, she wasn't signing. My mom called her bluff and told her that after she ran her, mom's, numbers of how much every sibling owed from different medical bills from my grandparents, nurses, grandpa's stroke, grandma's cancer treatment, grandma's heart surgery, that she paid because none of her siblings had enough to cover them, or a few loans because some didn't have enough money to pay the bills, that she was still owed way more. That way she was the one not signing unless everyone paid her after finalizing the sale. Erica, Samantha, Jane, and Leo were shocked after hearing the amount left. We then lawyered up, and since the contract with the realtor forced everyone to sign, there were no strings attached to the signing of it. After a few months, the sale was done. I have to say that Samantha and Erica aren't so smart. They gave their whole share to Jane, because they felt bad about the whole thing, and haven't paid my mom anything they owe. Leo gave Jane a little as well because she's his sister. Want to know my mom knew how much her siblings owed her and why Jane needed the money so much? After grandma died, there were some payments needed to be done, and since mom paid my grandparents' medical bills, except grandma's last hospital one, she paid her share only. She knew exactly how much she had given each of her siblings. As for why Jane needed the money so much, she was behind her monthly payments for her dream condo. Thank you for listening.